Mr. President, in a document later removed from her website, one of the Green New Deal sponsors had this to say about the Green New Deal. The question isn't how we will pay for it, but what we will do with our shared prosperity. The question isn't how we will pay for it. That was the quote. That's a pretty staggering statement when you consider that the Green New Deal plans to upend most of American society as we know it, from transportation to health care. But I suspect there was a simple reason why the Green New Deal authors didn't want to talk about how to pay for it. Because they couldn't figure out how. This week, one think tank released a first estimate of what the Green New Deal would cost, and here's the answer. Between $51 trillion and $93 trillion over 10 years. Between $51 trillion and $93 trillion. Those numbers are so large that they're almost impossible to process. And just for perspective, Mr. President, consider the fact that the entire federal budget for 2019 is less than $5 trillion. That's the entire federal budget. Defense spending, domestic priorities, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, everything. The Green New Deal could end up costing $9.3 trillion each year, double the current federal budget, and the government would still have to pay for a lot of other priorities on top of that. That money wouldn't cover defense spending or Social Security or a number of other urgent needs. Mr. President, the Green New Deal would assuredly raise Americans' energy bills. But that's just a tiny, tiny fraction of what Democrats' Green New Deal, which goes far beyond mere energy policy, would cost American families. It's difficult to even imagine the staggering tax hikes that would be required to pay for this plan. And this plan would never be paid for just by taxing the well-off. That's always the argument that we hear. Taxing every household making more than $200,000 a year at a 100% rate for 10 years would leave the Democrats far short of $93 trillion. Taxing every family making more than $100,000 a year at a 100% rate for 10 years would still leave Democrats far short of the $93 trillion. In short, actually implementing this so-called Green New Deal would involve taking money not just from the well-off, but from working families in this country. And not a little bit of money either. $93 trillion breaks down to over $600,000 per household. That's over 10 times the median household income in my state of South Dakota. Should the Democrat Green New Deal come to pass, ordinary Americans would see incredible tax hikes. Middle-class Americans would see a substantial and permanent reduction in their standard of living. Mr. President, we talk about Democrats' socialist fantasies. We tend to quickly fasten on the staggering costs of these programs. But it's important to also remember what else they would cost Americans. Socialism just doesn't come with a staggering price tag. It also comes with less freedom, fewer choices, less control of your own destiny. Socialized medicine, like Medicare for All, wouldn't just mean big tax hikes. It would mean giving up your private insurance plan, even if you like your coverage. It would mean being forced onto the government's health care plan, whether you like it or not. It would mean waiting long lines. It would mean that the long wait times that you can't do anything to avoid. The Green New Deal would mean higher electricity bills and higher taxes. But it also mean limited transportation choices, including no airplane travel. Increased government control over your housing options. Less reliable energy. And the list goes on. Mr. President, Democrat socialist fantasies would cost Americans untold amounts of money and permanently damage our economy. But the loss of choice and freedom would cost Americans even more. Democrats' green dream would be a green nightmare for Americans and American families, Mr. President. I yield the floor.